Imagine a machine built not for quiet commutes, but for moments that wake the senses. Metal, fuel, and willpower fused into something that demands to be ridden, not merely operated. Picture a silhouette slicing through mountain air, its engine note echoing off the cliffs like a challenge to gravity itself. It's the kind of creation that turns the ordinary act of movement into an act of expression, where speed becomes language, and precision feels like poetry written in asphalt. But behind every icon like this lies a story of evolution. How engineers chased perfection, how culture shaped design, and how one model came to redefine what mastery on two wheels really means. Today, we're diving into that journey, the triumphs, the missteps, and the moments that turned a simple concept into a lasting legend. So if you love stories where passion meets performance, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which machine you want to explore next. For American riders today, the Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 represents both a milestone and a time machine, a reminder of when motorcycles were defined by instinct, not algorithms. Its appeal goes far beyond nostalgia. The first-generation R1 remains surprisingly usable on modern roads, provided the rider understands its limits and temperament. At around 430 pounds wet and delivering about 150 horsepower, it still accelerates like a missile but communicates every ounce of feedback. In a world of traction control and electronic suspension, the 1998 Yamaha YZF-R1 offers a direct, analog thrill that no computer can replicate. Ownership in the US comes with considerations. Clean examples are growing rare, and collector interest continues to push values upward. Expect to pay a premium for original bodywork or matching VIN components, as many bikes were modified or crashed during their heyday. Parts availability remains strong thanks to Yamaha's enduring support network and an enthusiastic aftermarket community. Reliability is excellent when maintenance is consistent. The engine is known to handle high mileage with proper oil and cooling care. For restoration projects, the key challenges are cosmetic, finding pristine fairings and period-correct graphics. Performance-wise, the bike remains fierce even by today's standards, though riders accustomed to electronics will find it raw and demanding. It rewards smoothness and patience, punishes carelessness, and teaches skill better than most modern trainers. Insurance and registration in most US states are straightforward, as it's now old enough to qualify for classic status, sometimes with reduced rates. On twisty backroads or occasional track days, it still feels alive, urging its rider to push just a little harder while reminding them that mastery is earned, not assisted. The Yamaha YZF-R1 1998's cultural footprint endures as well. It continues to influence design language in sport bikes, from the sharp twin-eye front to the compact tail profile copied countless times since. For collectors, it's a tangible link to the golden age of Japanese superbike dominance. For riders, it's a test of feel, a machine that rewards understanding more than aggression. As time passes, the 1998 YZF-R1 will likely climb further in value, cementing its position as one of the most important motorcycles ever built. More importantly, it will remain a symbol of a philosophy that shaped an entire generation of motorcycling. Lightweight precision, emotional engagement, and mechanical honesty. And that's the essence of its legacy. The idea that true performance isn't measured only by lap times or data sheets, but by the connection between the rider and the road. The Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 proved that motorcycles could be both brutally fast and beautifully communicative, forever redefining the boundary between control and chaos. Even now, its engine note echoes in the DNA of every superbike that followed. Some machines fade into history. This one still rides ahead. The story of the Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 begins not on the racetrack, but in the imagination of a company determined to reclaim its place at the forefront of high-performance motorcycling. By the mid-1990s, Yamaha had fallen behind in the superbike wars. Competitors had faster machines, sharper handling, and a stronger presence in showrooms and on circuits. Inside Yamaha's engineering halls, a clear directive emerged: build a motorcycle that would not just compete but completely reset expectations. The result was the YZF-R1. Unveiled in 1998, it became the blueprint for modern leader bikes. What made the R1 so revolutionary wasn't just power, it was proportion. Engineers re-engineered the engine and gearbox to shrink the wheelbase without compromising stability, creating a chassis that handled like a 600cc sport bike but delivered the punch of a 1000. For riders, that meant a machine that felt agile yet explosive, capable of translating the subtlest body movement into motion. Its 998cc inline-4 engine, producing around 150 horsepower at the crank, arrived like a lightning bolt in an era when the average superbike still felt heavy and raw. Riders described it as both exhilarating and intimidating, a bike that demanded respect but rewarded mastery. Design played its part too. The 1998 Yamaha YZF-R1 wore sharp bodywork, twin headlights, and compact dimensions that made previous superbikes look clumsy. Every line served function, directing air, shedding weight, or emphasizing motion even at rest. Its aluminum delta box frame became iconic, balancing rigidity with lightness. It was the skeleton of speed, visible even beneath fairings. Yet beyond the numbers and specs, the 1998 R1 was about attitude. It signaled a shift from brute power to refined aggression, an understanding that domination required control. For Yamaha, it wasn't simply about topping a horsepower chart. It was about redefining what a sport bike could feel like beneath a rider. The 1998 YZF-R1's debut marked more than a model launch, it was a statement. The motorcycle industry had entered a new chapter where precision engineering met emotional design. Riders felt the difference immediately. Quicker steering, shorter braking distances, acceleration so fierce it blurred the horizon. Reviewers called it unforgiving. Enthusiasts called it perfect. Owning one wasn't just about owning speed, it was about joining a movement. Dealerships couldn't keep up with demand, and waiting lists formed worldwide. Yamaha's gamble paid off. The YZF-R1 1998 wasn't an evolution of what came before. It was a hard reset, one that forced rivals back to the drawing board. In garages and racetracks, it inspired a generation of riders who craved that raw, connected experience between man and machine. It became an instant benchmark, the motorcycle every brand would be measured against for years to come. But success on paper is one thing, maintaining it in a market hungry for constant novelty is another. The R1 had shattered expectations, but could Yamaha keep the fire alive as competition closed in? That's where the story deepens, as the 1998 YZF-R1's influence ripples across the next decade of sport bike evolution. When the Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 roared onto the scene, it didn't just set new performance records, it rewrote the emotional vocabulary of superbikes. The reaction was immediate and global. Riders who had grown up on heavy, overpowered machines suddenly found a leader-class bike that felt as light and precise as a racer. Magazines hailed it as a revolution, a turning point where technology and instinct fused perfectly. The YZF-R1 1998 became an instant halo product. Every manufacturer scrambled to answer it. Rival engineers studied its compact layout, its stacked gearbox, its frame geometry. Overnight, the bar for power-to-weight ratios was raised, and the race to chase Yamaha's formula began. In the US, the R1 captured hearts far beyond hardcore enthusiasts. It was exotic yet accessible, a machine that made ordinary riders feel like heroes. Its reputation for razor-sharp handling made it both thrilling and intimidating. A single misjudged throttle input could turn exhilaration into a lesson in humility. But that challenge was part of the appeal. The Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 demanded skill, rewarding those who treated it with respect and finesse. It wasn't built for casual cruising, it was an event, every time you twisted the grip. Track day riders loved it. Tuners saw endless potential in its strong bones. The aftermarket exploded with performance parts, carbon fiber kits, and exhaust systems designed to unlock the full scream of its engine. In racing circles, privateers found that the stock R1 could hold its own against factory-backed machines. It wasn't long before the R1's DNA appeared everywhere, from weekend track bikes to superbike grids across continents. What made it special was how well it balanced everything. Power delivery was smooth but urgent. Suspension feedback was crisp. The chassis felt alive under pressure. Yamaha had managed to create a motorcycle that seemed to anticipate the rider's thoughts. It wasn't about brute force, it was about communication. And that connection between human and machine became its lasting signature. By the early 2000s, however, the superbike landscape had turned into an arms race. Rivals released their own masterpieces, faster, lighter, more aggressive. The YZF-R1 evolved to keep pace, adding new technology, refined aerodynamics, and improved ergonomics. Yet for many purists, the 1998 model remained the purest expression of the R1 philosophy, raw but balanced, powerful yet elegant. In America, it shaped a generation of riders who saw sport bikes not just as transportation, but as tools for personal challenge and expression. Dealerships became gathering spots for R1 owners, trading stories about track days and canyon runs. Online forums grew into digital communities that worshiped the first-generation R1 as a touchstone for authenticity. The influence stretched beyond riding culture. The Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 changed how motorcycles were marketed, photographed, and even talked about. It brought style into the conversation alongside speed. Ads no longer sold numbers, they sold the feeling of control at the edge of chaos, a concept born with the R1. Yamaha's competitors couldn't ignore it. Each new release from other manufacturers seemed to borrow a page from the 1998 R1's playbook: shorter wheelbases, lighter frames, more centralized mass. The R1 had forced an entire industry to evolve. Yet with that success came new questions. How long could Yamaha maintain the R1's supremacy as emissions rules tightened and digital systems crept into every design? The next chapter of this story isn't just about dominance, but about adaptation. How the legend of the 1998 Yamaha YZF-R1 shaped the machines that came after it and ensured its name would never fade. The Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 was more than a superbike. It became the reference point for everything that followed. As newer generations arrived, packed with electronics, ride-by-wire throttles, and traction control, the first R1 stood apart as a symbol of mechanical purity. Riders who owned one spoke of its honesty. There were no filters, no computers to save you. Every input went straight from your wrist and body into the asphalt. It demanded awareness, balance, and courage, which is precisely why it became the ultimate teacher. For many, the Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 marked the moment when sport bikes crossed from raw engineering into artistry. Its engine layout, a compact inline-4 with that signature stacked gearbox, set the architectural standard for the next 2 decades of superbike design. Even as competitors introduced electronics and carbon fiber, the essence of Yamaha's 1998 blueprint remained. Lightweight frames, centralized mass, instantaneous throttle response, all ideas refined but rarely bettered. That endurance speaks volumes. Decades later, the 1998 YZF-R1 still appears in collector circles and track events, celebrated as both a technological milestone and a symbol of the golden age of analog speed. Younger riders seek it out not because it's the fastest anymore, but because it's the most visceral. It delivers something modern machines sometimes lose: the direct heartbeat-to-engine connection that defines true motorcycling. Its legacy stretches far beyond performance figures. The YZF-R1 1998 inspired Yamaha's approach to future models, influencing design philosophy across the brand. The company learned that emotion sells as strongly as data, that riders crave feel as much as they crave control. This understanding birthed future evolutions that blended technology with soul, but the DNA traced straight back to 1998. Culturally, the bike stands as an emblem of a simpler era, before rider aids, before screens and sensors dictated the experience. Owning one today is like holding a piece of living history, the machine that redefined an entire segment and still thrills on every ride. Mechanics who restore them describe the 1998 YZF-R1 as a joy to work on, straightforward, well-built, and durable, despite its ferocious reputation. The aluminum frame rarely warps. The engine, when maintained, runs reliably even decades later. It's a time capsule of late 90s engineering, where precision met passion. And in collectors' markets, values reflect that reverence. Clean examples command respect and strong prices, particularly for the red and white launch livery that became instantly recognizable. What keeps the 1998 YZF-R1 relevant, however, isn't nostalgia, it's influence. The modern R1, still carrying that name proudly, owes everything to its ancestor. The essence of control, agility, and balance that stunned the world in 1998 remains its defining spirit. Every time Yamaha releases a new R1, reviewers inevitably compare it to the original. The benchmark still stands. And for those who remember the first time they saw it, a streak of color and sound that looked more fighter jet than motorcycle, the feeling hasn't faded. The Yamaha YZF-R1 1998 changed what people thought a sport bike could be. It wasn't built to last forever, yet somehow it did, etched permanently into the memory of anyone who's ever twisted a throttle and felt the road answer back.